Hi, welcome to Module 2, titled Leukocyte Rolling and Adhesion. In this module, we're going to learn about leukocyte extravasation, which is defined as the movement of leukocytes out of the circulatory system and towards the site of damage or tissue infection. In this lecture, we're going to cover quite a bit of detail, but we'll begin with a broad overview and then dive deeper. Let's begin by looking at the location of where we'll be studying. And so I'd like to begin by drawing a blood vessel that is lined by endothelial cells. So these endothelial cells play important roles in this process. And so I'll draw these here shown in red. And again, these are endothelial cells. Okay, so these endothelial cells are what make up our blood vessels. And inside of our blood vessels, we have a constant flow of red blood cells as well as white blood cells or leukocytes. And among these leukocytes are macrophages, dendritic cells, and they are in a constant flow through the blood vessel. When there is tissue damage, such as infection or a wound, which I'll show an infection here, bacteria. And again, keep in mind that this is the blood vessel, and then beneath and above that is where you have the tissue. So when there is infection, such as a bacterial infection, there are resident immune cells that secrete inflammatory cytokines and begin the process of leukocyte adhesion, and then that drives migration of these immune cells to the site of infection. So there are 4 steps that we will learn about in this process. The first is rolling adhesion. The second is tight binding. The third is diapedesis, and the fourth is migration. I'd like to begin by focusing on step 1, which is rolling adhesion. And in this process, or in this part of the process, we're going to learn about some molecules that is important. And so we'll begin with this molecule called P-selectin. So P-selectin is secreted by the endothelial cells, and it helps create a weak interaction between the endothelial cells and the leukocytes. So I'll draw our selected molecule here that again is being expressed by the endothelial cells. So this is P-selectin. And again, this creates a weak interaction. So next we have tight binding, which is step 2. In this process, we create tight binding or tight and strong interactions. And so this is mediated by 2 molecules, the first of which we'll learn is ICAM. And ICAM is expressed on endothelial cells as well. So here's ICAM. And ICAM is expressed by endothelial cells but binds to leukocytes. And it binds to a specific molecule on leukocytes called LFA, called LFA1. Okay, and so LFA1 and ICAM bind tightly or strongly and create a strong interaction that creates to adherence of the leukocyte to the endothelial tissue or endothelial layer. And the third step is called diapedesis. So once the cells have bound tightly to the endothelial cells, they're ready to infiltrate tissue. And in this third step called diapedesis, what that is when an leukocyte is able to go in between the endothelial cells and begin to infiltrate the tissue. And then the fourth step, which is migration, is mediated by chemokines. So as I mentioned, the resident immune cells secrete chemokines that help guide the immune cells that are trafficking to the site of infection. So here we have an immune cell, and it's secreting chemokines. And an example of a chemokine that I would like you to know is CCL2. CCL2. So CCL2 is a chemokine that is secreted by immune cells. And when the immune cells that are infiltrating the tissue sense or recognize that chemokine, that helps drive their migration to the location of the infection. And so that completes the process by which leukocytes go from the blood vessel and into a specific site of infection or inflammation. I'll leave you with 3 questions to think about. The first is, which cells express selectin molecules? The answer to that is endothelial cells express selectin molecules such as p-selectin, and that is important for weak interactions. The second question is, which molecules interact to form strong adhesion of endothelial cells to immune cells? And so the answer to that is ICAM and LFA create strong interactions, and they are what lead to the ultimate tight binding of an immune cell to the endothelial cell in a specific location, and that is what helps mediate diapedesis and migration. And the third question, I'd like you to name a chemokine that's important for the trafficking of immune cells to the site of inflammation. And the one that we discussed in this lecture is CCL2. And so with that, that kind of covers all of the basics of this process and gives you some details about the molecules involved. If you have any questions, please refer to the lecture that I've posted on this module, and then also use our discussion board if you have further questions, and feel free to email me for any other questions that you may have. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this was helpful. Goodbye.